Well, thanks so much for joining us this evening or this afternoon. We'll start, I guess, I'm Ann Cunningham. I'm the Vice President of Development and Alumni Engagement. So nice to be a part of this conversation. Standing in for Leslie Smith, who's had needed to step away for an emergency this weekend and is not able to be with us now. So happy to join us. Who wants to start with introducing themselves and a little bit about who they are? We can go in a row, or we can go by graduation years.
Doesn't matter.
Which,
how you want to
whichever.
Oh, the oldest? Okay.
Whichever.
If it's old, then I guess that's me. My name is Sharon Harder, and my maiden name is Garner. I'm class of 70. I come from a small town in Ohio named Wilberforce, Ohio, where there are 2 HBCUs located. Can you hear? Can you hear? Speak more directly. Okay, I'm not used to this. What was the thing? I'm from a small town in Ohio, Wilberforce University. I got here, I had a high school guidance counselor who had done, a black woman who had done her master's degree, I believe, at IU. And I was one of those overachieving kids in high school, finished high school at 17, second in the class. And she encouraged me to apply to DePauw because she said, I hear it's a good school. And I was one of 7, and my folks said, at $30 a piece to apply, pick which one you want to go to. So I picked here because at the time they also had DePauw had a National Honors Weekend where people were, high school honor societies were invited to spend the weekend. You went to a symposium and discussions on campus. They found a date for you if you wanted. And I really loved the experience that weekend, and so this is where I came. I also, when I came here, I went through Rush. And now 50 years later, looking back, I said, I was only invited back to 2 houses, then only 1 house. I wonder why. I think I know why now, because over the years I've been conversing with the local alumni and my classmates. When I pledged, we actually had to have a house meeting, have a national officer here to say, look what we did, folks, because we had to have recommendations from alumni. And they could not get a recommendation for me because of my biracial background. But one of our alumni was married to a director of the art department, Dr. French, and she was from Dayton, Ohio, and a very liberal, outstanding woman, and she got me a recommendation, and that's how I pledged my sorority. And that and the AAAS, I believe, were my foundations of developing leadership and skills that have endured with my life. I was the vice president of the sorority, and in AAAS, we didn't have officers, but we did have some experience getting. I remember sitting in Dr. Kerstetter's office trying to get some African American studies or Black history classes at DePauw. Most of the activity for the AAAS did not get started till like 69, and I said I was class of 70. But we had a lot of programs. It wasn't just all social like some people thought. I donated to the DePauw Archives yesterday some brochures and programs I had saved for 60 years in a scrapbook with our confrontation in black and white, Black awareness, and all the programs we had while we were here, before I graduated in 1970. I had taken a snapshot and sent to Eddie Green, so he didn't even know they still existed. So hopefully the DePauw Archives will do some good with that. So that's it.
Good afternoon. I'm Pam Harris Blackburn, and I am class of 1972, School of Music graduate. We got some School of Music people here. How I ended up at DePauw. Okay, well, here's a little tidbit for you. My high school choir director, I'm originally from Flint, Michigan, and she was a graduate of DePauw, and she is here today for her, I think, class of 63. So she called me on the phone and she says, I saw your name on the list, and I just want to make sure that you're going to be at your 50th. I said, yeah. She says, well, I'll be there too. So we met up yesterday with the band experience afterward at the end, and it was so wonderful, and I got to introduce her to some of my friends, but she is quite that sharp lady. So she told me about DePauw. Of course, I was already signed and sealed and going to Michigan State, majoring in music, where half of my friends were going. And I ended up here. I visited once, I visited again, and then they invited me back for an audition. So I was a voice major and a piano minor, so I've taught for 45 years, retired in 2017, Indianapolis Public Schools, wonderful place. I ended up at Crispus Attucks. It was a medical magnet high school while I was there, and so that whole program got turned around. But because of my experience here, which was such a unique experience back in the 70s, I feel that I've got a lot to share today, so thank you all for coming, being here.
Okay, my name is Myron L., and I'm 76th graduate here. Taught high school and elementary school for 37 years in Indianapolis, and did professional theater in Indianapolis and the surrounding area. During that time in the 80s, 70s, minorities were really not welcomed in the Indianapolis, Indiana music scene, especially when it comes to theater. And Loretta Yoder at the Civic Theater opened that door. And we did an all-black production of Guys and Dolls that was just phenomenal. And it really thrust all of us into our equity cards and doing so many things. So it was a great time. Do I need to tell you how I got here? Or is that later? Well, I went to Crispus Attucks High School, which was an all-black high school. Until my senior year, they decided that they would integrate the school. And this is a historic school. And they were going to start with the teachers. And my teacher at that time, Anderson Daly, was prolific. And he volunteered to go to Washington to allow a teacher to come in. And that teacher happened to be from DePauw University, Gail McFadden, and she's sitting right there. She was my guardian angel. My family was poor. I didn't know if I would be able to go to school. I was in the upper decile of my class. Back in the day, we were going to Indiana opened their groups program, and most of us were going in the groups program. She came, I was president of the choir. She saw something in me that prompted her to drive me to DePauw for an audition. And I got into DePauw. It changed my life. She's my guardian angel. She only stayed a year. God brought her there. She left and went to Xerox and hired me for that summer. So I had a summer job at Xerox every year of my college career. God doesn't send angels like that often. We lost track of each other. We just saw each other today. I said to myself, there has to be other people like her at DePauw. And there were. My mentor, my advisor, Thomas Fitzpatrick, treated me like I was his own, took me to his family. I was his kids' brothers, and we sat and ate and all that kind of stuff. DePauw's a wonderful place, and I wouldn't be here without Gail McFadden, so thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kennedy Shepard. I'm class of 2025. My intended major is education studies. I chose DePauw. I didn't really have a dream school, so I wasn't quite sure what I was looking for in terms of college and higher education. But then I found the Bonner Scholar Program, and not very many schools offer that, and service has always been, a big part of my life, so I decided to kind of integrate that into my, higher education. So as a Bonner Scholar, I'm over at the Greencastle Middle School as a TA. I really enjoy it. It's been a great experience so far. And so I'm excited to be here with you all today to kind of talk about AAAS as the current exec member, and just talk about where it's gone since, our alum have since graduated and how much we've, improved this program that they have started and how we can kind of improve it as we go on.
Hi, my name is Bailey Rent. I will be a sophomore at DePauw. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I went to Pike High School. We had a graduating class of almost 700 students. So coming here was a big change for me. How I got started. I would say when I was looking at colleges, I definitely had a dream school. I wanted to go to USC or Northwestern. I had really big ambitions. And I did not want to go to a school in state. That was number one on my list. But my mom, she was advocating for DePauw. She loved it. So I really had a lot of opportunities when it came to DePauw. A lot of people reached out, alumni, and that was amazing to me to see how all of these people with, good jobs and high education who had really busy schedules, they took the time out of their day to just talk to me and talk about all of the opportunities that DePauw had for students. And I was really worried because DePauw is a PWI, and going to a school where African Americans were the majority of the population, I was just really nervous about the transition. But when I got here, it was just really cool to see how even though people of color were a minority, they all came together to kind of build a family. And I feel like that was really important because at a lot of bigger schools, you kind of see a lot of different cliques, and students of color often, they kind of break up. So it was really cool to see how all of the people of color created a family here. And I'd say that was something that I was looking for in a school. So that's why I chose DePauw, and I'm so happy that I did.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your starting points at DePauw. Thanks for sharing your starting points at DePauw. So transition, the next question is very much about AAAS. The starting of AAAS. So I think this one will be at this side of the room to start where AAAS and what you remember the AAAS to be when you were on campus, and then we'll transition to where it may look, what it looks like today and how it's continuing to impact students.
Well, I have the mic, so I'll start. When I got here, I came on a Greyhound bus, that little store down there, and just a bag of my stuff, and got into BR, Bishop Roberts, and that very same night, a car drove by and said, "Go home, nigga." And I said, okay, this is going to be interesting. Luckily, the guys at the dorm in BR, the upperclassmen, embraced me. Well, yeah, of course, I had to go through the ritual, pick me up and throw me in a shower type thing just to make sure I was okay. But boy, were they amazing, because they lifted my spirits about what DePauw had to offer. They gave me the real story about the opportunities here. And yes, it was during the Civil Rights Movement, it was the Vietnam War, there was hatred, there was all kind of stuff, probably like it is today. But boy, they helped me see the light at the end of that tunnel. And so it was tough. AAAS was a little bitty house just across from BR, my freshman year. I think my sophomore year is when it moved over here on Locust. this big, like a fraternity house. I mean, it was wonderful. And Dr. Stanley Warren was there, and he invited a speaker to come in, Patricia Russell McLeod. I had just flunked my first class in my life, and I was really feeling bad. And she said something profound in the AAA house, when we were sitting there. She said, "This is only 1 minute of your life. You can get through this." The taunt on the first day that I came, the F that I received was nothing. This is only a minute of your life. And from that moment on, I put my boots on and started to navigate DePauw University.
My story is really similar to Myron's, us both being choral directors and all. But when I came to DePauw, I didn't even know about a DePauw University. I didn't even know where Greencastle was, that it even existed. Like I said, I had other big schools in mind, so I decided to give it a shot. I visited twice, and the third time, I guess, was the charm. I was invited back to audition in the School of Music, and in that, I kind of found my compass, so to speak. And there were only 23 students of color, considering black students and African students. It was 23 of us at the time, and I think it was out of 2,000 students here. And so we were more or less forced to either sink or swim, so to speak. But, like you said, there were no cliques, there was no hatred in our group. We were all kind of forced to get to know one another and to get along. We had some very close friends in our respective majors in the School of Music. Well, my best friend in the School of Music is sitting right out there behind Dr. White, Becky Reneker, which we lost contact after we graduated, and we had not seen or spoken in 50 years. So I have to give that credit to Leslie Smith, who I dearly love, in alumni relations. I gave her a call one day, and I knew our reunion was coming up, and I said, I really want to find a friend of mine who we were close, and we were actually united at the hip in the School of Music. And she was actually my first Caucasian friend here on campus, outside of our circle of 23 students of color. And so I gave her name, and she says, okay, I'm gonna look her up. I'm gonna find her, because she's excellent. She's like an investigator with finding people. And she called her first and said, I have somebody that graduated with you in the School of Music that is interested in finding you. And she gave her my name, and she was like, oh yeah, so excited. So Leslie called me back the second day and said, I found her. So, this reunion weekend has not only been good for our panel here, but it's also been good for reconnecting with our long-lost friends that we've had. So, in navigating through the 4 years here with 23 students, we would always gather somewhere, if it wasn't in Rector Hall or Holgate Hall, because we were the first class in Holgate Hall in '71, I believe. We always had somewhere where we wanted to gather and talk about issues on campus, things that we were going through both scholastically and personally. Just being black at DePauw was a navigation within itself. And so as we looked around, we saw other groups who had formal gathering places in which they could meet to discuss issues and just communicate and be empowered. We had the Asian students, we had the international students. These students, the African students, they all had houses and gathering places, which led us to come together with Stanley Warren and James Sedlak, English professor here at the time, who said, you know what, you guys, we should meet. And we were talking about it amongst ourselves. We need a place for us that we can just share things, both good and bad, and come up with solutions to our problems that we were going through, both mentally, socially, personally, academically, the whole bit. So it was actually Dr. Sedlak and Stanley Warren who helped us write a proposal for for a house. And it was our first place in 71, I believe, was on Locust Street, which is now the Pulliam Center. That's where, and it was an old dorm. I think it was Locust Hall, right? Locust Manor, exactly. And they were going to tear it down. They were going to demolish it. And so we said, we better get to writing, because we need a place, So we wrote a proposal and presented it to the alumni board, and they accepted our proposal. And so the first floor of what was Locust Hall that they were getting ready to demolish became our first place to gather, the Association of African American Students back in 1971. And it just does my heart so much good. I have so much pride to see that it's still going strong today, and so many members have passed through that. And it has grown throughout the years. And of course, as Dr. White told us, the number of students of color at DePauw now is phenomenal, so it's been a serving point, for me personally, and for us, I believe, as a group, to start, having a place to gather and being able to communicate and plan and interact with some of the other cultural groups and how we could come up with other ideas and programs to interact with one another. And basically, how do we survive, DePauw for 4 years? Is basically what it was. But we all had such collective ideas. I mean, it served its purpose, and we were all very happy. And, a lot of the other organizations didn't know what our struggles were, nor did we know what their struggles were as well. So it was a great place to share ideas and then to plan things, on campus, whether it be social events, parties, symposiums, things like this, panels. It just took off. So again, I think I made a wise decision to spend my 4 years here at DePauw and to say that, we were all close. We all became close, and we have some lasting relationships because not only of AAAS, but because of who we were as people, and that we did survive all the craziness that was going on back in the 70s, in the late 60s. Sharon.
I came here as a freshman in the fall of 1966, and there were 4 students of color, all female, all in different dorms. And it was very hard not to see each other or even talk to each other. There was 1 or 2 guys who were on the basketball team, and we saw their picture in the gym, so I was sort of like, okay, there are people here, but where are you, And it was, as I said, we didn't get the AAAS house, Old Locust Manor, until about 68 or 69, I believe. It was, I said, where the media center is now. And we had other programs besides community and getting to know each other. Because I remember tutoring some students, some out-of-town students, high school students in math and science. I was a bacteriology major here at DePauw. And we tried to get involved a lot with the community. One of the department secretaries was a local black woman, and we'd have dinners at her house because afternoon on Sunday there was no meal service in any of the dorms. And we'd have to try to fend for food. And I remember going to their house where the local guy had his barbecue grill going. So in the AAAS house, the locals even found it, and the kids would come in there and talk to us and help, and we tried to recruit them, if not to DePauw, but to have a life beyond Greencastle High School. As I said, the AAAS was a communal place. I was different. I was in a sorority house. One of my sisters is back there now, 50-year friendship. But you still tend to, just like the German majors or the music majors, you want your own group to share common experiences. And that's what the AAAS house was for me.
I have a quite different experience about why I joined AAAS. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I went to a PWI high school. The school was about 3,000 students, a little bigger than DePauw. It was a pretty big high school. So I knew the importance of having that community and having that organization, those people to kind of fall back on, and I knew how important it was to get involved. So my very first week here, I was trying to find people. It was very scary because being in a new place, even though you're still in the same state, being in a new place is still really, really scary. I'm sure our whole panel can attest to that. And so I knew that it was important to kind of get involved, and I ran for a position and didn't get it. So I was just really disappointed about not really being as involved as I wanted to be. But I made my connections and I found a way in. I was parliamentarian last year, and it really helped me to kind of get my foot in the door in terms of, making an impact on campus and reaching out to, my fellow Black students or just people of color in general on campus and making those connections and make people feel comfortable and having that safe space to kind of, convene and talk. And, we haven't really had a chance to use AAAS House because of COVID, but I'm looking forward to, opening up that space again for my peers, and, hopefully we can kind of congregate and, have those conversations and have the, those, fun events. So yeah, that's why I joined AAAS. I knew how important it was, and I really wanted to get involved.
So when I first came to DePauw, I mentioned that I went to a high school that was mainly students of color. And so coming to DePauw was a big change for me. And I had some really close friends starting off at DePauw. One of my friends I had known since elementary school. So I kind of had a few people that I stuck with. So I did not know about AAAS until about a week in to classes. My big sib, her name is Chloe Johnson. She was a voice major. She just graduated. Oh, so sad. She sought me out, and she came to me and was like, hi, I think we have similar interests. These are some things that I think we could do together. So I was actually vice president of Exalt Gospel Choir because of her. She was the president, and she was vice president of AAAS. So she's how I kind of got connected with that. She would always invite me to events, and I really found a home at AAAS that I hadn't found anywhere else. And I would say that I was a little lost when it came to students of color until I came to those events. So that's how I got started with AAAS, and I didn't get a position because I didn't know about AAAS until later on after the elections had passed, but I made sure that for the next year, for my sophomore year, that I was going to get involved because it was really important to me to just not only reach out to more students of color like Chloe had done with me, but also just show them that there was a place where they could come and feel comfortable with students who look like them. So I created a chair called Community Outreach Chair for AAAS, and I want to work on volunteer work, charity events, fundraisers. That was really important for me, so it's just really nice being able to put those two passions together.
Thank you very much for sharing all of that. The question that I have outlined here is really how does it feel that AAAS is still going strong after so many years? Maybe the younger generations, the impact that you're making today and the new things that you're trying to increase the opportunity for yourself to be in leadership positions, just yourself, and then for our mature alumni, how are you feeling about the generations that you're seeing today, and how to keep empowering them to keep doing what they're doing?
Well, for me, something really spectacular happened for me. Well, when I was here, February being Black History Month, it was just another month here. No one reached out, no one had any ideas, no one did anything, no one observed anything. Well, in 2010, I received a letter from the president of AAAS, saying that they were doing a gospel explosion week at DePauw in 2010, and invited my ensemble. I had 4 choirs and an ensemble, and invited me to bring one of my groups here to perform for Black History Month, and it was produced and brought about by AAAS. So that was such a great sense of pride right there. I just can't tell you, just something came over me. I brought my 20 singers, which were my top singers in my ensemble elite from Crispus Attucks, Medical Magnet High School, and boy, those kids just performed, I'm telling you. I had been pumping it up all week. I said, this is my alma mater, so I'm really excited, and it's the AAAS that's doing this, And there were, I think, 3 other visiting choirs here at that time as well. But it was then that sense of pride just really hit me, that, this is the association that we helped to found here that's still growing strong and are still observing, monumental months like Black History Month, and doing these things here on campus. And the outpour of students was just great. I could not believe all the students, all races, all ethnicities were there. And then we had a big celebration and dinner afterwards. It was wonderful. And I just could not get over being overwhelmed to see that not only what we had founded was still going strong, but to put on this celebration the way it was put on. And this was in 2010 and still going strong today. So that was a monumental thing for me, that helped change me and helped give me even more of a sense of pride knowing that we were part of the founders of this organization that's still going strong today.
I've been simply amazed at the progress that DePauw has made with marginalized groups. There were 23 in her class, 27 African Americans in my class, now on campus, 27. In my class, it was 3. 2 of us graduated on time. AAAS was our backbone. I mean, we weren't affiliated with any sororities or fraternities, all the parties and all the things that they did. We were excluded from that. So our identity, our social life, everything was rooted in the relationship that we had at AAAS. To watch individuals go and change things on campus, from the food in the dorms to getting other marginalized groups recognized. I mean, I look at DePauw today and I look at all of these affinity groups that have a voice. We didn't have that. To have a place where you can go and socialize and intellectually engage and know you really intellectually engaged with your fellow classmates. And so I look at it today and think, AAAS is part of the fiber of DePauw. And because it was there and never relinquished its purpose or its ideals, it spread and it grew. And you could see that a couple of years ago. And people got upset with that group of students that protested. But for me, that was AAAS. That's what we did. We made people think. And because of that, we're here. So I'm so proud of AAAS and all of the students associated with it. When I see their success and I see their bond, I see what it means to this university. I see all of the affinity groups. We even have Greek chapters up and through here. We didn't have any of that then. So it's amazing to watch it and see it grow. I hope it continues and grows even more.
As I said, there were so few people of color my freshman year. And in the 60s, I know most of you have lived it, but there's so much going on. When there was women's rights, there's civil rights, the Vietnam War. Someone from my graduating class burned down the ROTC building the night before graduation. So there was all kinds of factors pulling on us to round us into the people we would be. AAAS, like I said, that was very early beginnings. And for me, it was an affinity group and a place to do some volunteer and something besides just go to class and be a good student. And I'm glad, again, to see how affinity groups or other areas of interest have expanded, have their own houses, their own rooms here. I noticed there's a women's center over there. I mentioned I was at a Wabash Monon Bell game last November, and I mentioned to someone there that I was in Association of Women Students, AWS, and said, "What's that?" So I said, I guess that went by the wayside too. but I was also represented our unit in Association of Women Students. We had dorms, hours, and lockups, and just getting around visiting to Locust Manor way down here when you live over there at 11 o'clock curfew or 10 o'clock curfew was interesting. So there were other challenges and social issues we had to deal with at that time. And it's good to come back. Progress is good. And I appreciate you guys.
I just wanted to say first off, thank you so much for all of your hard work. You guys walked so that we could run, and students here are taking full advantage of all that you have fought for. And we realize that our progress, work is still needs to be done here on DePauw's campus, but we're moving in the right direction, which is why I joined. I want to help be a part of that progress and help move DePauw's campus forward to more an equitable and a more inclusive community. And I feel like I can speak for all of AAAS. We enjoy each other's company, we enjoy that safe space, and we enjoy, just being around and having that sense of community that I know everybody keeps talking about, but it's so important at a PWI, and you don't realize it until you're out of it. Especially, kind of like in the classroom, talking about certain topics, you're like, do I talk, do I not? Like, how are you gonna take this? But being in that space where you can say what you need to say and get it out there, and people are going to accept your ideas and take what you have to say and know that it's valuable is really important. And so having that safe space and being there for what you all fought for, and just being here in that space is really important.
Sorry, allergies. Being at DePauw's campus, I would say I saw a lot more people of color than I know people in the past have. But one thing I will say is a lot of people of color like to hide, which, they have their own lives, of course. But one of the reasons why I joined the body of AAAS is because I wanted to see more. Of course, I see people every single day, and it's a blessing, it really is. But I really would like for us to have more events, do more things, show people that we are a community and that we are working together to make change. Because although we have our own meetings on the sides of campus and at the AAAS house, I think it's also important for everybody, the whole DePauw campus, to see that we want to make a difference and we are a strong community. So that's one of the reasons that I joined AAAS.
I'd like to say too, real quick, that I've been on campus quite a bit, keeping up with, the organization itself. And every time I'm just walking the campus and I see, black students that look like me, students of color, I want to stop and talk to them, and introduce myself to them and talk about experiences and let them know how glad I am to see them here on campus. My son also went here, and it wasn't because I was pushing him to go here. He was already going to go to either University of Toledo or Howard University. He was a football player, and he had a high GPA, not bragging or anything. But, and then after visiting some of the larger schools, he said he just felt like it was a meat market. It was just one of 200 players, and he said, I really don't want to be waiting until my junior year to get on the football field. So I said, well, maybe you should start looking at smaller schools like Division III schools. I said, with your GPA, they have money to give for your academic work and not just your athletic work. Pray that something should not happen and you get hurt, you lose a scholarship, you don't play anymore, you have to leave school. And he started looking, and I mentioned DePauw, I threw it out there, and he says, well, isn't that where you went, right? I said, yeah. He says, no, I'm not trying to go where you went, Mom. No, I'm trying to make my own path. I said, okay, well, I just wanted you to keep your options open, right? So DePauw started sending him mail, just out of nowhere. And so I said, come on, let's go take a visit. Let's go. So he went, he came down with us the first time, kind of liked it, went back home. Got some more calls, started getting calls from the football coach, Nick Morosis, who we all just loved. He came back again the second time. Then he was walking the campus and started becoming greeted by students of color, and some of the football players who were actually African-American players. And they invited him to come back again, third time, for overnight weekend. So he came back, hung out with, players of color, whatever, and then they did the football thing and the academic thing. And he started more and more leaning toward DePauw. So then I started using my influence. Son, you really need to go there. You're going to love it. The smaller class sizes, blah, blah, blah. The Association of African American Students. So the very first time that right before he made his decision to come here, he came for the last visit and spent hours with the students of AAAS in the AAAS house. And he came back home and he said, Mom, I'm really liking what I see. I'm really liking what I've been told and what I can be a part of. I think I'm going to go ahead and fill out the application. I said, yes. So the rest was history. He was a part of the association, which I was had full of pride in that, you know, and he did well in academics and with football. And, you know, I'm just glad that he'd also made that choice to step out, you know, on faith to come here out of a situation that was totally different coming from Ben Davis High School with, you know, 60 or 40% black students to come here. But he loved it. He's been encouraging other people to think about it. You know, he's been talking, you know, about DePauw. He served on, you know, some of the alumni boards with Max Hittle back there, you know, and he's gotten some awards at DePauw. So we're just glad that he chose this place. It was a great fit for him as well as me. I just wanted to share that.
I think he's a member of the Athletics Hall of Fame.
Yes, he was just inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame for football this past year. Yes, yeah, I'm proud. And he was also a Young Alumni Award recipient the same time that Max also got the Golden Goblet Award. Okay, well, since 2007, he's been working with the NFL, with the Baltimore Ravens. Started out as, they call them 2020, 20-year-olds that works for $20,000 a year. But it was a little bit higher, it was like $25,000. But he's been with them now for 16 years, and he worked his way up. He was an area scout. He spent 7 years as a West area scout, so he made his home out in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then 2 years ago, he was promoted to National Scout, which took him off the road a little bit more, but he still had to go out and oversee some of the other scouts. Well, right after the draft this year, and they had an excellent draft, by the way, if you keep up with the Baltimore Ravens, they're known as the most craftiest drafters in the NFL. He was offered the director of college scouting. So he's going to be moving back to Baltimore next month, actually. So, yes. So, yeah, thank you, Max. I wasn't going to say nothing, but okay.
You're just answering the man's question. Well, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that story and all of your individual stories. It leads us into one of the questions that Leslie asked me to pose is, you've talked a lot about what it meant as a student to be a part of the AAAS and have that community. How did it help you in a career, a future, the impact that you found there in that community that maybe helped propel you or was able to listen to you didn't get that job or you didn't get that internship or the other side of the college coin that sometimes everything doesn't go the way you think it's going to go?
No, I didn't have any advantages in my career. I started out in bacteriology, worked in medical labs, and then, you guys think inflation is bad now? In the 70s, we had wage and price freeze. My salary was frozen at $6,000 a year for about 3 years. So I decided this was not working. I took a civil service exam, started working for the federal government, and progressed through that. Got an MBA along the way, and retired now since 2008, I believe. But I never had a need because the civil service and one of the most, to me, non-discriminating organizations in the world is federal government. Everything's by merit. You know, my college degree is worth as much as someone else's. My bacteriology degree was worth as much as someone else's in business from another school. But I think I have used DePauw relations and DePauw associations more advantageously than AAAS, because I said I was there at the beginning in the formation time.
Well, DePauw, I think, Really taught me how to think, how to be independent. I left DePauw and went to teach in IPS, and nothing really changed in IP from DePauw to IPS. I was still one of the only black music teacher in high school at Shortridge when I started. Some wonderful kids there. But what DePauw taught me was to do it my way. I didn't want to do the status quo and all of the things that were other schools were teaching these teachers to teach music like it was a boxed course. I had to be who I am. And so DePauw taught me to stand alone and to make my own choices, to have my own vision. And sometimes that's a lonely place to be, but it's very rewarding. It taught me to think beyond what's in front of me so that I can open doors, not only for myself, but for my students. And they can see too that what's in front of them may not be as black and white as it seems, but there's a whole world of possibility out there for you if you can do it yourself. And so I'm glad that DePauw was that influential in how I did my job so that my students could see that and do that as well.
Yeah, we started at, well, he started at the top. I started at the bottom and had to work my way up. He came right out and got a high school choral directing job. I had to start at elementary and then move from elementary to junior high, from junior high to the transition of middle school. And then I went to heaven and finished up at Crispus Attucks, who was the rival high school of Shortridge, actually. But I, too, had to do it my way. You know, and DePauw did teach me that, to be innovative and creative, and everything wasn't always on the music staff. It always wasn't black and white. It was with how you perceive that worked the best for your groups, your students, your choirs, and everything. So I like to say that I had excellent groups at all levels, from elementary on up, and DePauw taught me that. I remember when I did my student teaching here in Greencastle in the 70s, okay? I was at Ridpath, and I couldn't believe Ridpath is still standing over there by the DG house. And so I lived in Holgate, and I walked to my student teaching job at Ridpath. So here I come in with, classes full of all Caucasian students, and I walk in with my big afro, okay? Huge afro, and the students were looking at me like I was crazy. I said, and they asked me all kind of questions. I said, but by the time that my student teaching stint was over, I had gained the respect of all of them, even though this is something, it was new for them too in Greencastle, that, we have a black student teacher that's teaching us music. Well, then at the elementary school, it was general music. So I had my little attaché case with everything in it, all different music genres, history, and everything. So it was basically an education for all of us, for the students as well as myself. Then at the high school, the old Greencastle High School, I didn't have a car, so I was begging my parents for some transportation. They said, no, you get your degree and then we'll talk. And then when I got my degree, it says, well, you get a teaching job and we'll talk some more. So my supervising teacher was wonderful, and he actually gave me a ride every morning to Greencastle High School, which I didn't know about the bus system, if there was a bus system or whatever. So I walk in with high school students now, going from here to here with the big afro, and the first thing one of the students said to me, and it was a sophomore class, a choir, he said, excuse me, you tell a little bit about yourself, and they come back with things about themselves that they like. He said, excuse me, but do you grow birds in that nest? And I said, no, I don't, but I grow brains up here. And that's what I'm here to teach you. I'm teaching you how to find your brain and be a good musician. So, that's how I started. Yeah. But it was an experience for me here. But I wouldn't trade it. I would not trade it for the world. I feel like when I left here with my degree, I felt like I could probably go to a woman's prison and direct choirs because of the things that, I was overcame when I was here. And I felt like I made it. I really made it because coming from the situation that I was in, from Flint, Michigan, predominantly black high school, to coming here, and then the students being all white students that were my first students that I actually taught. So I felt like, okay, I have made it. I can go out here and successfully be a choral director and do it my way, as Myron said, my way.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions for our panel? There's a microphone up front if you want to come up to the microphone.
What is a PWI school? Yes.
Predominantly white institution.
My turn to ask me that question. I said, I don't know. Thank you for enlightening me.
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question. When it comes to just what I've heard is just kind of awesome. You guys have really inspired me. But when it comes to, I've heard that, AAAS, I don't know, I guess when it comes to bringing people together, my daughter's bathing in a red dress.
Welcome.
And I knew when we visited that it was meant for her to be here, but when it comes to understanding, I know it's a lot of segregation in different areas and different groups, but I would challenge and just ask you, how will you bring those groups together when it comes to, because it's all an understanding, people understanding, and that's what separates us, is that we don't understand. We're just people, right, of different color and different cultures, but just to bring those together. And how do you guys see that coming together in the future?
I think Bailey spoke to it before about how we're working on now bringing a lot of people of color together. We kind of find ourselves like in our own little pockets on campus. And respectively, you want to give each other that space, but it's also important to kind of come together. And I was going to mention off of that last question, I think we find ourselves being kind of complacent. And we kind of, because, times aren't as like what they used to be, and so people kind of get comfortable with that. But also, my mom always says, "Closed mouths don't get fed." And I think if we all kind of like speak out and talk about our issues, and we can find the commonality in that, and kind of relate to that, and then work towards a better future, as our alumni have done and continue to do as they come back to DePauw and give like these panel talks and all of that. So we're definitely working towards that. I think that if we had more open dialogue and open conversations, I think we would get a lot further. People often, get stuck on our differences, and that's what kind of holds us back a lot, I think, on DePauw's campus specifically. So I think if we work on that a lot more, in the upcoming years, we can get a lot further.
I will say, coming to events here at DePauw with students of color, especially for the AAAS, we saw a lot of people, not only African American students, but also Hispanic students and Asian students, and I think that was really, really cool to see. Because it's about, we want to make sure that all people of color feel comfortable, especially since we don't have a lot of areas here on campus. So one thing that I will say is, one of my friends, he's Hispanic, he was talking about how he didn't know if he should come to AAAS events because he didn't want to overstep those boundaries. So I just really want to make sure that all students of color realize that we are all here for a reason, and we are here to build a community for ourselves. Doesn't matter our skin color, we are here, and we have to build a community because we don't have as many places as other students do. So, yeah.
And one more thing, I think it's really important that we do open the space up for people who are not Black, just for those AAAS events. And I think that's something we struggle with this year a lot. Even members within the organization kind of excluding those people. And I don't know how to rectify that. And we should really take a page out of you guys' book, because I think you all really showed that sense of the community and, not excluding, because you knew how important that progress was to be made. And I feel like we've lost focus of that over the years. So I think that's really important to kind of focus on as well. I'm not quite sure if you all know how we could kind of rectify that issue, kind of bringing outside people in and, kind of, just working together to create a better DePauw.
Those are big questions.
I just think through conversations and maybe newsletters and things like organizing meetings and make sure that those newsletters go out to all ethnicities, including Caucasians, and inviting them, because the first thing is that they don't know, and they're probably inquisitive and they might be afraid because they don't know. And then to just make them feel like they want to come in and just be a part of your meetings or symposiums, it starts from there, probably. And then you can reach out, because anybody can feel more comfortable.
Right. Once that barrier is broken, that's the first step.
I was totally amazed when I came back to DePauw for the Monon game a couple of years before the pandemic. And it was the first time that every student group was represented in the field and had their spot. Everybody, every representative, we were one DePauw at that point. I brought tears to my eyes. And I think that's what you're talking about. How can you remove barriers of isolation so that we can become one DePauw? That was a start, but that has to happen across the board. And it's not going to be easy because people are territorial. And so you got to tear down some boundaries and some barriers. Somebody's got to cross the aisle, and somebody has to create an event that says we are one DePauw. It was the most beautiful thing I saw of DePauw. Went to Marvin's, and just the demographics in Marvin was like, this is DePauw. So I hear what you're saying. It's not easy, but I think it can be done. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we are at the end of our assigned hour of time here this evening. Thank you so much, everyone on stage, for participating and sharing your stories and sharing your voices with us. Thank you to those that are in the audience for your questions and your support. So the next advertisement for our weekend events is the Coming Together reception, which will be hosted over at the Justin and Darien Christian Center for Diversity and Inclusion. It starts at 3 o'clock, so we can go over across the way for some more fellowship and maybe some good food. I think there's some snacks or something there. It's an alumni reunion weekend. I've learned very quickly that we just put food out different places and people go. So thank you so much for everything, and really, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.